The journey of how the Carabao.
So now, without further ado, at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute honor to bring to the stage our very own Mark Kimberly now, Head of Students Affairs Office, for the introduction of our guest speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. If one takes a closer look at the alchemy of the achieving person, two distinct values pop up. Besides perseverance and hard work, these are the pioneering spirit and willingness. Our guest speaker today is a living idiom of a woman who happened to be born at the right time and at the right place. Coupled with an impressive background, it was not therefore surprising that she became the chairperson of the Cordillera Region Health Research Development Consortium, co-chair of the St. Louis University Research Ethics Committee, chairperson of the Council of Health Commission on Higher Education, and one of the board of directors of Anxiety and Depression Support Group in the city of Baguio. She's been teaching in college for almost 33 years, and now she's the fourth-year department head of our future nurses at St. Louis University School of Nursing. I know this is difficult, but the thought that she is a woman of virtue and simplicity, I feel elated to introduce her to everyone today. She is my advisor, my mentor at grad school, and the person I look up to as an inspiration. I feel very proud to present to you the modern woman who inspires and touches the hearts of so many. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome with a massive round of applause, Dr. Rufina Calum Abu.
Thank you for that very generous introduction. Naibag naman yung tayo I think there's no parents outside. You can come inside so we can have better interaction. Okay, so yes, it is my pleasure and pride to be with you this afternoon. Nakasama na Let me, kasi I usually work in the grassroots level and when you say teachers, grabe, I actually have high regards now for teachers. My husband is also a teacher, but I am also a teacher in the higher education, and I know how difficult is it now to really mold this future citizens of the Republic of the Philippines. Sabsabali di ugali na they really have different psyche at this time. Totally different from how we were raised before by our parents. Uray no naridak nga bimakal tayo, marigrigat siguro. I've been through that. Okay, so I've been through the ranks, of course, now of making myself finish nursing education with so much poverty, pero with much perseverance as well. We had that particular grit, diba? This time, I think they were parented differently, and apparently, my mentor at National Center for Mental Health would always remind me, Rona, there are no problematic children if there are no problematic parents. Nasakit, nadunggan, diba? It's quite painful to listen to those particular words. But with the counseling that I've been doing, with the therapy that I've been doing in the community as well now as in the College of Nursing, these are actually, there are several proofs, of course, that particular adage, which I will also be presenting later on, there's truth to that, okay? But definitely it is further complicated now with the digital age. Our children are in a different age at this time, that at the tip of their fingers, they can readily access information. Nanuhaan tayo nga na screen, di ba? That can actually make it something of disadvantage now on their part. So again, I am so much honored to speak with you this afternoon. So rules natin, let's just be open, okay, with whatever questions you would have later on. And I think this is one very important topic that I always discuss with parents. I've been as far as Bontoc, Mount Data, Tadjan, just to educate now parents regarding this particular adolescent brain. Why? We usually wonder, ay, nakastraight to ubita pa. Okay? Before, no, mabisig ka, di ba? You can just go to the garden and harvest kamote tops or sayote tops, di ba? Magaling ka mga you can cook your food, di ba? But this time, they would all rely now on their parents. Okay? Umutda pa na awan di ka nanda. Parang ganun. So, there's so much change actually with our children of today, but very important here is kanta yung mga umunga nga mga awat. Kinyada. Okay, so my topic for this particular afternoon is understanding the adolescent brain, the challenges and implications. Kung nakarod when I studied now this particular adolescent brain, hamad nga mo ni nanang ko, makasaan nga kastagayan ti brain. Hamad nga mo ni tatang ko, my dad and my mom didn't know that this is not the structure of the brain. But they parented as well. Diba? That most parents are also educated. Why is it that we are having difficulties? This is actually sparked, of course. I do not know if you also have cases here by self-harm. Nagaduti self-harm tayo. Actually, I am a member of the Mental Health Council of Baguio City, and all cases actually of suicide is also now being coursed through me, especially for the post-prevention. Di ko being nagtinag iti magsaysay. Actually, I was the one who intervened dun di best friend na. Actually, it was the best friend who planned, who communicated that I want to commit suicide. When inununaan na. Inununaan na di best friend na. That's why the best friend actually was really crying so hard during the post-vention activity. But actually, that's a trigger. When somebody else would share to a friend, nga balak ko na ito, so they tend to normalize na balak na magganyan, so magaling magganyan na siya. So what happened was, inunulaan na. Okay, so that's actually the case with that particular child. Okay? But there are still, of course, now other factors related now to that makes them higher risk for suicide natin. So I'll be presenting some data later on nga pagpankamunutan tayo, okay, so that we will be able to guide our children, our students particularly, but I think more so is nag-i-anak tayo. How I wish nga that the document parents who are with us this particular afternoon, but nevertheless, what is important is you just have now to transfer the knowledge later on, and what's more important is you apply this particular principles or the knowledge that you will be acquiring from this particular seminar in relation to how you would also not be dealing with our children. After all, diba, they may be coming from a different womb, but more importantly is we are actually instrumental in the molding of this particular youth. So it is always mentioned, nothing comes as an accident. The mere fact that you are in this particular venue today, there is always now a purpose for you being here. And we find meaning to this particular, your presence at this particular time is something very meaningful today. Okay, so I will be focusing further together with the adolescent brain. Very crucial is actually now mindful parenting. Okay, what about now mindful parenting? I-explain ko madamdaman kinayo what we call now, apay na mauawanan tayo the EQ, di ba? And people would actually tell us now that EQ is even more important than your IQ. There's a process we call it now as your amygdala hijacking. We tend to forget yung mindful parenting na yan. Okay, so parenting is about parents. It's not about kids. Because tayo, we already have now that particular cognitive ability to understand and supposedly to transfer the role model. More importantly, role modeling is actually very important. Okay, so let's talk about our kids this time. Okay, so as I have mentioned earlier on, this will always remind me every time. I might be biased. Okay, I can be very biased at certain times. Because there are also no certain factors that we also don't influence the attitude of our parents. But even Freud would tell us, psychoanalytic theory by Freud would also tell us now, okay, would prove several cases of children that I have handled. There are really no problematic children if there are no problematic parents. As a mother, nasakit mo kinakapanunutan data, but we just have, of course, not to accept the fact that that really happens. Okay, so let's try to reflect on, quite serious, medyo serious, usapan tayo niya. I do not have actually the gift as my husband. Kasi yung husband ko pala, estudyante ni Mom dito. Estudyante ng husband ko si Mom. Okay. Yeah, so I think it is very important that we reflect on this particular question. What challenges have you encountered in dealing or parenting the youth of today? Okay, may have some thoughts. What was the most difficult challenge that you have encountered? May inom pala nung sino di asawa na dito? Yes, okay. And what about the single? Ay, nalagay single tayo. Yan, okay. Marami din po yung single pa. Ano? But anyway, okay. Yes, you are not single after all because you are caring. Okay, you are caring for our students in this particular school. So I think you have the same task, of course, now, understanding the brain of our adolescents, okay? So inya kita tuma, and inya dagi pinaka-challenging behavior that you have encountered, either with your child or with our students. Yes, you seem to...
Sensitive nila kung minsan, madali silang people or masyado silang sensitive unlike yung older generation.
Okay. So, yeah. So, are you pertaining to the high school or to the elementary or overall? It's common. So, it's a common observation. So, malakadang masaktan. Okay? Sensitive. Okay, so, it is appearing that they seem not to have the same resilience that we had before, di ba? Muuray awan ti makanong okay lang, di ba? Makiayang ka lang tayo dyan. Hinadak mo awan ti makanong ka, nakaiaya ka ni nanang ko. Nakakasyayan, di ba? Kasi kayo di ka nagbilog ka, di ba? Nakaka-relate ka. So, very sensitive sila. Okay, sige. Oo. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
There are no focus on gadgets.
Yes, I think that's the number one problem that we have, di ba? O rin nung babuhin mo yung jibalayan o yung kaginawan. Wait! 5 minutes now! 5 minutes! Nalipas ki 5 minutes. Wait! Di ba? Nakaunod ka, di ba? They would always say, wait, di ba? Okay, wait. Okay, sige. Yeah, for the interest of time, let's go through some very important behavioral issues. What about my behavioral issues? Do they follow you immediately? No. Diba? Niligat si tayukat mong lagatan na kaninanang mo. Diba? Mong lagatan mo suda, mong lagatan na kamo. Okay. Yes. Yan. So, disobedience, diba? Or, yun na ka lang, diba? You put a structure into their activity so that they know their responsibilities. Or ano emphasize mo, anak, I have to do this because I have to teach you how to become a responsible man. At nung mag-asawa ka, di ba? Hanggang kababain, di ba? Alam, kung ibabain ka, ano nga, sunod-sunod ka. Kasi anong tungay, in-laws mo, di ba? Kaya i-emphasize mo na ganun. Okay, bakit kayo hindi nila nag-pick up? Okay? So, that's one. We also have now, yan, fights, di ba? Normal naman ang fights between siblings. Okay, but you can see this time, do you have this particular problem with your kids? No? common. Okay, normal naman yan, di ba? Okay, so they would overcome that while they would also not be growing. I hope not that, di ba? Not that much in school, okay, to the extent na may mga misbehaviors na tayo. You also have no lying, di ba? O nagapuan, di ba? Or what about your assignment? Ay, ano lang na assignment ko? Kahit or ka, di ba? Okay, so even of course not with their expenses, especially ladies this time, di ba? Kasi pati sila, di ba? They are already used to shopping. Ganun. Okay, back to, dito. I think this is one thing, di ba? That moms, yung puros nanan, kasi si tata. Okay, yes. Happy Mother's Day pala. Yes, okay. Yes, talagang ang buhay ng anak is much nakasalalay. Okay, much nakasalalay sa mga nanay. Actually, we were just talking earlier on. Nagagalit yung isang co-faculty ko, sabi niya, "Ay, magtatay ang asawa ko. Pati senior citizen ID na, pero mabiro ka." Ay, nata, namasabi ko na, nakarelay daw ano, di ba kayo? Yung mga gano'n, di ba na statement? Sabi naman ng isa, ay na, no, ang muda nga dati pagdependean ba, depende ba? Noong kamot, they will become independent. But I do not know, di ba? Ura naman mong lagatan ba, nagulagaw ijayan, mama, eh, nandiyan ka stoy, dahil taman nito. Di ba? Okay? Kaya nga si mama daw, di ba? Ilan ang mata? Maraming mata. Di ba? Okay. Alam mo kaagad where did you place things? Kasi sila, andun na sa harapan nila, they cannot still see it. Yung ating sabihin. Okay? For children, okay, going back. Back talk or arguing. Nasubukan nyo na nagsasalita ka, and then your child would talk back, di ba? Ano yung mararamdaman mo? Di ba? Nung bukla ko! Tanga, nakakil ka! Sumba-sumba! Kumabing ka! Pinisip-sip ka! Yung mga gano'n, di ba na, kung pwede nga lang na umusok, di ba, yung ears mo is, because you're not expecting that you would be receiving that particular, di ba? That way of dealing with you as a mother. Okay, so problema din natin yan. Or some, of course, especially this time, may mga gadgets nila, and they have not to go with their peers. May mga moments that they also steal, di ba? May mga ganyan na moments tayo. What about their habits? Okay, so you mentioned earlier on, very common. Okay, because these are now the digital natives natin. Okay, focus on gadgets. That leads now to internet addiction. And when they report to school, matulog na, di ba? Actually, that's not only for probably your high school. We also encountered that problem with the college. Okay, dati, di ba? Ang rule namin, dati suyaab, quiz nga dagos, di ba? Kaya they watch each other's mouth, di ba? Suyaab. You should never yawn, na. No yawning, di ba? Ganun. Pero this time, mukhang hindi na pwede. Hindi na umuobra yung rule namin. That was our rule 10 years ago, di ba? No, dati suyaab, automatic, di ba? Bring out one for sheet of that paper. But this time, hindi na. Okay? Kasi makikita mo talaga nga, hindi lang iisa. Dalawa at marami, di ba? And when you ask, anong sasabihin nila? Ma'am, napuyat ako. Akala mo naman na nag-review ng subjects nila, ng academics nila. Hindi, but they are into your internet. Okay, games or even now Facebook, di ba? That actually takes so much of their time. Okay, and hindi maganda yan, di ba? Yeah, I'm into several counseling of students. Bakit? Dadaanan nila yung mga emotional concerns nila sa tweet. Diba? Yung mga away-away nila sa mga friends nila sa tweet, sa Twitter, diba? They would tweet it, kasi sabihin nila na, "Ma'am, naka-private naman eh." Baka makita mo sa classroom nag-aaway-away sila. Kasi sabi ko, pag hindi lang nakapangalan yan sa'yo, ibig sabihin, it is not something private, di ba? Sabi mo, meron naman akong choices, friends. Ay, nauwi mo dati may salaon yung kita. You cannot always say that that particular person will keep that information if you are revealing, okay, yung mga sama ng loob mo. So they would usually utilize now the social media to express their emotions, and that actually creates so much conflicts, especially if it involves already now other people. So yeah, lack of sleep or even, ay, nagad-aduti, apa-apa na. Okay, what else? Emotional concern, selective mutism. Nasubukan nyo na pinakausap nyo yung anak nyo, hindi ka sinasagot. Diba? Anak, wala, hindi ka sinasagot. Why? Have you also tried that? Kinakausap ka ng anak mo, hindi mo siya sinasagot. Okay. What else? Poor peer relationship. Yan. Very common. Very common among ladies, yan. Poor peer relationship. Sadness and anxiety, engagement in restrictive behavior. And we also have now your academic concern. We have difficulty focusing. I do not know. I'd like now to go back to yung sadness and anxiety, the emotional. Okay, so, meron ba kayong cases of self-harm sa mga students nyo? Dito? Meron? Do you do the checking? Meron? Nag-check kayo? Yes. Okay, kasi makikita mo, di ba? Tinatago yan, di ba? Tatago yan, nakaganyan. So, very important that you have now to check also on that. Okay, yung school nurse natin. Okay. Yeah, I never knew na yung school nurse niya pala, anak ko pala sa university din. Okay. Yun, self-harm is actually very common. My colleagues in the School of Nursing during the first week of March, para lang makita natin how severe the problem is. We were taught psychiatric nursing, okay? But during the first week of March, we had 3 faculty na nag-self-harm yung anak nila. And they cannot actually tolerate kung paano yung pain na, imagine, nurse ako, alam ko dapat, bakit yung anak ko, yung mga ganun, diba? So, they feel guilty about themselves. So, sabi ko, if it happens now to us, na alam natin kung ano ang dynamics ng behavior, then how much more with probably other families na hindi nila alam yung mga bagay-bagay na yun. Okay, or even how to detect the psychological distress among their children. So, that's how severe actually the problem is this time. That's why we just have not to be very sensitive. Bakit? Diba? Why do they have not to go into self-harm? Yung emotional pain, you call that now your side ache, diba? So it's an intense psychological pain. The side ache that they are now experiencing, something emotional pain, diba? They usually like now to isolate that from their consciousness. So, natiaramidan that. By doing now, harming themselves, may focus the psychological pain na ijay physical pain. Okay, so pag nakafocus na yun, so apparently it becomes lighter. And then some would even say na they seem not to exist as an individual anymore, and how what assures them that they are living as an individual. They have to harm themselves. Para pag naramdaman nila na mayroon pa palang pain, buhay pa pala ako. Okay? Kasi ang feeling nila, that's actually their accounts. Ang feeling nila, parang, wala, parang paralyzed lang ako. Pero I'm just breathing, but I actually do not feel anything. Parang doon sabi ko, bakit kakaiba na? Dissociate, di ba? It must be very traumatic na bakit sa consciousness, hindi nararamdaman. Okay, yung bodily sensations nila. So they go now into your self-harm in order now to feel na buhay pa pala ako. Yung mga ganun. So these people does not actually have, several of them, does not have the intention to die. Okay, pero sa atin seryoso na kasi pag self-harm. So I think it is very important as well, okay, that we need to know what is now going on. Okay? Hi Doc, partner kami ni Doc sa Mental Health Council. Okay, so yes, that's something related now to the sadness and anxiety and the self-harm that they usually engage into. Distractibility, madali yan, di ba? Lalo na sa mga elementary natin. Okay? Or actually even college this time, anong daling ma-distract? Hindi makafocus. Kaya pag sa classroom, anong ginagawa nila, di ba? Previously in the classroom, we observe now, nung tayo, di ba? What do we do now? We take notes, di ba? When the teacher is now giving the lecture, we take notes. So we really, makita mo, nagkalipay na game tayo, yes? Yes. Ngayon, di ba, anong kanila, anong style nila? Nag-flash ka, picture sila ng picture. Tapos pag tanungin mo na, wala nang nag-register sa ibutak, tapos sabihin nilang hindi mo lecture. Di ba? Why? Because wala nang connection yung hand, the motor, di ba? The motor functioning of that particular hand is very important because it connects now with the cognition. Okay? So ngayon, ang problema, di ba? Wala na, parang kumbaga, they do not mind anymore what is now being discussed by the teacher because they would always rely, anyway, I have my picture, I have my notes, di ba? And then when you ask about what you have lectured and when you do your post-test, di maalaga. Kasi hindi nagko-connect sa neurons nila. So very important, di ba? The activity that you do actually enhances now the cognitive ability of this particular people. Pero this particular children. Pero course, gano'n na lang, di ba? So, walang effort. And then they would just browse through, di ba? Hindi naman nagre-register ulit sa utak nila. Okay, so that's the problem. Lack of focus, distractibility, lack of motivation because ang daming distractions din. And, what else? Yan. Let's focus now, okay, on some of the most important natin, technology and influence of social media. Yes, makikita natin, di ba? Kahit bata pa lang. You agree? Ang galing na, di ba? Na mag-swipe. Swipe? Sabi ko na yan. Dito. Di ba? 6 months old pa nga. Di ba? 6 months, 3 months actually. Di ba? Kung minsan, mas marunong lang mag-ganyan. Di ba? So you can see how, di ba? How that particular gadget have changed already the cognition, the mindset of our children. Okay? Even, of course, now at home, sinasabi ang pinaka-cheap na katulong is the television. Okay? When you're going to do something, wash the dishes, cook, or wash the clothes, di ba? O anak, itakapay, switch the TV. O yan, gadget, yan ang cellphone, ang laytag, behave, di ba? So, who makes them addicted to this particular gadget? Okay, so naiintindihan naman natin. Kasi, in our desire not to be disturbed, in our desire, di ba, na mapagali ang mga bagay-bagay, okay, so we switch on to those particular gadget. We expose them to those particular gadget. And that particular gadget is already taking already now. Okay, their attention. Kaya, ano mangyayari? Condition na yung mind. Na whenever mama is doing something, they would already ask for it. Parang hindi ka na-disturbuhin, aka na, yung gadget ko, put on the television. Okay? And even, of course, now, sa hapagkainan, di ba? Meron ba kayong rule na bawal ang cellphone when you are already good? Okay? Sa amin naman mga friends, di ba, when we get out and go to a resto, ang unang hahawak ng cellphone niya, di ba? Siya magbabayad. Di ba kaya nga kayo andun, di ba? Because you have to pay each other's presents. Ngayon na kayo magkita-kita yung cellphone pa niya. Di ba? Nakakasa pa ba yun? Okay? Ganon ang rule namin. So whenever we go out as friends, di ba? Ang unang maglalabas ng cellphone na, siya ang magbabayad. Okay? Yan. Okay, so we can see, of course, na yung communication natin, hawak-hawak na ni anak yung iPad niya, di ba? Instead na yung eye contact na nade-develop mo, na-observe mo sa mga anak mo, so na-focus natin sa mga gadgets natin. And that actually allows us now na may marami tayong namimiss. We are being robbed of the opportunity to supposedly interact with our kids. At malaman natin kung ano yung nasa loob nila. But because of that particular gadget, okay, wala na, diba? Selfie, groupie, mga ganyan, diba? Okay, so even, diba, even in their assignment, previously, anong ginagawa natin sa assignment nila? Tayo nagtuturo. Pero ano ngayon, ang sasabihin na namin, ay Google mo. I-Google mo, bilang mo dyan internet, internet, baklakan, baklakayan kan. Diba? And, you know, previously, diba, you have to take time, you have to take effort really to sit with your child in order for you to let that child feel that you are important to them. So, iba yung connection. And your presence actually, the mother's presence, the parents' presence when they are now assisting their children in their homework, actually allows now the release of positive hormones, of your happy hormones. Yung contact na lang ng skin mo or yung embrace mo sa anak mo that actually releases now your serotonin, which is an antidepressant, di ba? Pero wala na yung mga yun. So wala nang connection. Kaya, ano nangyayari sa mga anak natin? They become less emotional. Kaya, pag may problema sila, yung sabi nila, nagiging sensitive. Kasi, parang feeling nila, nanineglect sila. Because even at home, they are neglected. Now they come to school, they again are neglected. Binubuli pa sila ng iba. Then, that is where their emotions are coming from. Okay? Let's look into some protective factors natin and risk factors natin. Okay? And the outcomes. So this, family concerns, changing family structure natin, complicating dynamics and confusing parenting process. Yan. What about now, this particular family concerns natin? Changing structure. That's something that we really have now to face as well. Okay? In my previous classes in the university, pag nursing yan, di ba? Alam mo kaagad, di ba na, sino nagpaaral sa'yo? Nanay ko sa abroad, auntie ko sa abroad. So when you ask them, okay, raise your hands, sino ang namili ng nursing as a course? O konti. It's about 60 to 70% would say, my auntie chose kasi scholar ako. And then when you would now ask, how many of you have OFW parents? About 60%. Okay? 60% would have OFW parents. And when they are over OFW, paano sila nagko-compensate sa absence nila ulit? Gadgets, money, ganyan, diba? So, that's the problem with your changing family structure, which complicates now yung dynamics natin, confusing parenting process, and even of course now family structure natin. Dati-dati, diba, we know that particular fact, what is a family? A mother, father, children. But this time, nanay na lang, diba, lolo, lola, okay, and the kids, so those are changing family structures natin that probably our kids are not also prepared for. Okay, so these are some very important things that we need now to take note of as parents. Okay, as parents, diba? When we talk about your triangle that's red, so that is no danger, ibig sabihin, it's a risk factor to any of that, early sex, substance abuse, or depression. Okay? And then the circle one, which is blue, these are actually protective factors. Okay? The protective factor ko na, this would actually lessen now the possibility of our children going into those particular psychosocial problems natin of early sex, substance abuse, and depression. Okay? A positive relationship with parents. Okay, so how do you describe your relationship with your kids? That's actually very important, right? Can they just come to you and say, Mama, I feel this. Mama, may I ask you to assist me with this? Okay, so positive relationship with kids is believed to be a protective factor to early sex. Especially this time in Baguio City or in 2015 actually, CAR has the highest percentage of teenage pregnancy until 2017. Pero this time, di ba, tumataas ulit teen pregnancy natin. Okay, so you have there, positive relationship with parents is a protective factor to early sex. Can you comfortably talk about sex with them? Ako yung anak ko, actually nasasabi ko sa kanya, do you have a girlfriend already? Mama, meron na po. Okay, Mama, pwede pakilala ko yung girlfriend ko sa'yo. Okay, I have to tell it directly to him. Sabi ko sa kanya, bawal ang makiiyot ka. O, kasi pag sinasabi natin yung mga terms na, diba, tumatawa siya, diba? And I would even tell it in front of his peers, diba? Kaya tumatawa din mga peers nila. Is there something wrong with what I said? Sabi ko sa kanila. So it's just a warning that you should, diba? So if we can talk freely about this thing kasi, diba? They can also talk it out freely with you. Pero pag dinadaan natin sa paligoy-ligoy, it might be very difficult for them to understand, okay? So it is also now a protective factor to your substance abuse and to your depression. Okay? So very important yan, positive relationship with parents. Another is conflict in the family. Okay, during the pandemic, ang dami-daming cases, lumala ang cases natin ng domestic violence and even problematic children. Why? Nakita nila kung ano ang totoong dynamics ng family. Because they've been staying already 24 hours in the family. Pero pag may pasok, di ba? Parents can conceal yung mga away nila. Habang andito sa school, okay, hindi nila nakikita yung mga away ng parents. But during the pandemic, nakita nila kung paano. So actually, I've been doing online counseling, and we have several of those particular cases. Several is now related to father-mother conflict. So conflict in the family, nakikita ng mga bata yan. For example, previously, nagkikis si nanay nagkikis si tatay bago aalis ng bahay, di ba? Tapos mamaya, bigla na lang hindi na niya makikita si nanay, tatay niya na hindi kinikis si nanay, di ba? Hindi nag-goodbye kiss, mga ganun. So, there's a lot of thoughts already toying at the back of their mind pag may mga changes. Even probably very subtle sa tingin natin, but for them, that is already something big deal na sa kanila, okay? So conflict in the family is a risk factor that can lead to substance abuse and also na your depression natin. Okay, positive school environment, okay? You know, this is very important, okay? Positive school environment. Kasi kung minsan yung mga conflicts nila sa bahay, yung mga problems nila sa bahay, they can only, they seem of course now to be comfortable lang. Parang nagiging comfort or nagiging safe space na nila yung school. So they'd rather go to school rather than stay at home na nag-aaway ang nanay at tatay. Okay? So very important is how are we also creating safe spaces for them? Yung mga bullies natin dito sa school. You know, I'm a victim of bully, but I know how painful it is. So I know what the impact is. I even became an introvert person just because of that particular bullying. Okay, so very important. Ang positive school environment natin for early sex, for substance abuse, and for depression. So these are all protective factors natin. So if we treat our students as our very own kids, they would feel that so much, okay? Friends who are negative role models could lead now to early sex because they would even invite, diba? Substance abuse, and further, a positive relationship with adults in the community. Okay, very important ito. Kung minsan kailangan natin na i-endorse natin yung mga anak natin sa responsible adults, okay, sa community, na pwedeng titingin sa kanila in case we are not, diba? Lalo na sa mga OFW parents natin. This is believed to be a protective factor now to your depression because they can have somebody else to run to in case may mga problema sila na may encounter in the future. So they always look for a safe person, a safe space where they would be able now to reveal or catharsize these particular emotions. Having spiritual beliefs. This is not very important. Do we pray together as a family, midnight prayer natin? These are all actually protective factors now to both early sex, substance abuse, and depression. We know by a fact that spirituality is part now of the superego development, okay? But definitely this is something that we cannot take, of course, now for granted. And engaging in other risky behavior, okay, such as substance abuse, nakikipag-away, bullying, diba? That is also now, if they can engage in those risky behavior, early sex, substance abuse are also considered now your risky behaviors din natin. Okay. So, bakit kaya? Very common ang mga problems na ito sa mga adults natin. Okay, so the brain development. Okay, what about now? Adolescents, brain development natin. Okay, so we have there. This is just a figurative lang ito. Okay. It appears to be something figurative, but actually in reality, that is how the brain of an adolescent is. Okay? So, makita natin yung love lobe. Pero yung love ba, sa nanay ba yan? Sa tatay? Hindi. Sa pamilya ba yan? Hindi. Sa peers yan, di ba? It's more of peers. Kaya sabi, during the adolescent period, that is also not the time when the child appears now to be dumalayo, di ba? Dumalayo yung feeling. Dati-dati, nung elementary sila, they would love kissing you, even in front of their classmates. Pero nung adolescent na, Mama, huwag kang sasabay sa akin, diyan ka lang sa likod. O huwag nang kiss ha, huwag nang kiss. Mga ganyan, di ba? So they become so conscious already about those particular, yan. So you can see rebellion center, the ego, slamming and punching reflex, di ba? Very common yung sa adolescent, okay? Awkwardness, TV storage, so makita nyo, those are very, very important, okay? In the growth and development of the child. Why do they need now to be quote-unquote yan ha? Rebellion. The rebellion is an assertion of their need for independence. Okay? So if we allow them, if we guide them properly, na ma-direct yung negative attitude into something positive, diba? Then they become resilient people. Okay, so it's a matter of how we are going to direct now that particular part of the brain. Okay, so let's discuss the processes that occurs now in the development of the brain now of an adolescent. Meron tayong tinatawag natin, the first part is now the pruning. Okay, probably you have bushes, trees at home. Pag yung mga stems niya is, di ba, magkakaiba yung pinupuntahan, you need to prune it, di ba? So that it would grow into a more beautiful bush. Okay, directed siya. Okay, so there is no pruning in the adolescent brain during this particular period natin. There is no proliferation of what? Anong nagpo-proliferate? It is now the white matter that proliferates. The white matter are the connection, diba? Connections sa neurons natin. And when there are more connections in the neuron, the more that they become emotional. Okay, so I'll show you later on kung ano yung difference ng gray matter sa white matter natin and what is now responsible for communication and for thinking sa part na yun. Myelinization is very important. So if ito yung neuron natin, so ito yung cell body, if you can imagine, yung cell body natin, the cell. Okay, so you would have now the branches over there. Kailangan mamyelinate yun. That's a particular substance na mas magandang makapal yun kasi pag makapal yun, faster ang impulse transmission. Okay? And that's what happens now during the adolescent phase. Okay, so there's that particular process of myelinization, and then you also have what we call now your dominance of the feeling and acting processes rather than the thinking. Okay? So let's discuss this particular processes one at a time para mas maintindihan natin na, ganito pala yung nangyayari sa mga adolescents natin. Okay? And of course now, I'll be adding now the hormonal changes which adds more. Okay? Which adds more now to the problems of adolescent natin. Okay, so brain development. Okay, what about now brain development? I know you have a background in relation now to your development ng bata, diba? Okay, so age 5, cognitive theory by Freud, by Piaget, diba? Okay, so neurologically, it is already established that age 5, by age 6 specifically. Okay, so this is age 5, that's age 20. So you can see the gray matter. The gray matter is the one responsible for thinking, di ba? Thinking. Siya yung, kumbaga, ito yung computer mo, siya yung motherboard. Okay, gray matter. Yung mga connections niya, that's actually your white matter. Okay, so the board is now the gray matter. The other connections that connect now the different programs together, that's now your white matter natin. Okay? So, the gray matter, if you try to take a look at this, ang density niya, higher pa ang density ng gray matter natin during age 5 than age 20. Kaya sabi natin kuminsan, diba, bakit parang nagsubli ka ng ubi? Mas panunod ka pa yung ibig-ibig ka. Yung mga ganun. Because that's a natural process. Okay? So, by age 5, 95% of the brain development is already completed. Kaya minsan nagwa-wonder tayo, bakit advance ata yung anak ko, ang tali-tali mo? Diba? Kasi at age 6, 95% fully developed. Okay? And then, preteens, that is now the second major growth spurt. Okay? 10 to 12 natin. So you can still see, of course now, the density of the gray matter. So, makita mo yung anak natin, sinusunod pa yung mga sinasabi natin. But when they reach already now about 13 years old natin, that is now where the pruning and the organizing, especially the frontal cortex na tinatawag natin, very important yan, okay, nakakat yung connection. Why? There is now a need to prune that is now in preparation for a better adulthood period ng bata. Parang yung tree sa session road, nakita niya, di ba? Prinun yun. Nagko-complain lahat tayo, di ba? But look at the beauty of that particular tree. Those trees in session road this time, di ba? So you need to prune in order that when they reach already now the adulthood period, they can better think for themselves. Okay? But what about now the downside of that particular process? So, yun ang concern natin. So, mas maraming white matter than the gray matter. So, pag i-compare natin, napanunot by 86 years old than the 20 years old. Okay? So, that's part now of the process of pruning. Okay? And when they reach now, you're 25 years old, according to science ito, di ba? The child should have already reached now the full brain development. Okay? So, tayo, yun na yung full brain development natin na-achieve na. Pero meron din tayo yung tinatawag natin na brain plasticity. We can always improve the process of thinking. Okay? Through, of course, now training yung mga utak natin. Okay, so, if you try to take a look at this particular pruning na tinatawag, pruning is necessary for fine-tuning, di ba? So, look at the child's birth natin. Ito yung sinasabi natin na gray matter. Okay? Ito yung cell body, which contains now the thinking process yan. Siya yung nagpa-process. Pero itong connection na ito, di ba? Bakit naiintindihan ng isang bata yung tinuturo natin? Kasi nagko-connect-connect. So, pag walang connection na ganito, di ba? Dapat nagre-relay ng messages from this particular cell body to another. How do they relay messages? Because of this particular white matter. Kaya bakit sinasabi natin, nagkabsok pick up mo? Diba? Nung nakabsok pick up, ibig sabihin, itong communication na ito, itong mga white matter na ito, kukonte. Okay? Kukonte yung white matter, kaya hindi nagko-connect. Hindi na naiintindihan. Okay? So that's now the child's birth, but the peak of your neuron brain development is from 0 to 5 years old, di ba? Kaya nga, Piaget's theory would tell us that give so much sensory stimulation to the child para nagko-connect-connect na yung mga neurons niya. And that happens now. At 7 years old of age, makita natin, di ba? Ang dami ng connection. Okay, so they can readily understand what you are saying, they can readily absorb, okay, your teachings natin. Okay, but at 15 years old, makikita natin, there is now a need for this particular connections not to prune. Nagpo-prune yan. Para ma-fine-tune, that's actually the process, ma-fine-tune yung mga neurons at mas mature ang thinking ng bata later on pag maging adult na. Okay? So, this is synaptic pruning na tinatawag natin. Now, what about now? What is now the process of pruning? Ito ang delikado. Okay? Pag ang mga bata naka-focus lang sa gadget nila, so we have that particular rule, use it or lose it. Okay? Use it or lose it. Pag ang bata ginamit niya yung talent niya, yung brain niya, on this particular skill, what happens now? It is developed. Pero pag hindi niya ginamit, kasi mas nakafocus na lang siya sa gadget niya, hindi na niya nade-develop yung ibang skills, such as interpersonal skills, diba? So, interpersonal skills are very important because the development of the personality occurs only in terms of interpersonal relationship with other people. Hindi po madidevelop yung ugali natin kung hindi tayo nakikipag-usap sa ibang tao. Hindi tayo nakikipag-interact. Okay, so, the principle is use it or lose it. So, let's put some activities dito sa neurons natin. Na ito, responsible for reading. The other one is responsible for sports, arts, music, poetry, gadgets, di ba? May kanya-kanyang toka yung mga neurons sa brain natin. Meron pa, interpersonal relationship, di ba? Socialization process, communication, mga things sa ganyan, okay? Pero tignan muna natin, ano yung common na nakikita natin sa mga bata. Now, these are previously the activities that we asked them to do in order to develop a holistic student. But the problem is, if the gadget would already take much of their time, what happens now? Applying on the principle of use it or lose it, sabi dito, the neural synapses that are being used will be retained. Okay? While yung hindi nagagamit, ano mangyari? Cut. Okay? So, hindi na siya nagbabasa dahil naka-gadget na lang, di ba? Hindi siya na nag-engage into sports dahil gadget na lang. Even in arts, in music, in poetry. So, they become addicted already now to gadgets. So, gadget na lang ang natitira. Dahil hindi ginagamit yung ibang neurons nila, okay, so they lose it. So, yun po yung delikado. Okay? So, that's the problem of the pruning process. So, how children spend their time is crucial to brain development. Okay? So pag holistic ang treatment natin sa kanila, so all those particular parts of the brain would become fully developed as well. So what about now your gray matter to white matter? The gray matter is where all the thinking happens, diba? At the brain's processing center, as I have mentioned earlier. The white matter contain now the axons, like a superhighway, siya yung nagko-communicate. Okay? So what happens now during that particular period, bumababa po yung gray matter natin. Okay? So, because of that particular pruning process, need for developmental processes natin, bababa ang gray matter, ang density ng gray matter natin, pero nag-i-increase po ang white matter. So therefore, what is now the implication of this particular process natin? Hindi sila nag-iisip masyado. Pero ang bilis na mag-react, di ba? Kasi mas mabilis yung communication rather than the thinking. Kaya sabi nyo na sensitive sila because of that. Okay? Sinabihan mo lang ng konti, hindi na nag-isip. Kasi kulang yung neurons for thinking, yung gray matter. Mas maraming white matter na nagkukulik-kulik ka agad. Kaya they tend to misinterpret some of the things that we are now telling them. And they become very sensitive. Okay? So that's the problem with that. Mas maraming white matter than the thinking process. Okay? Yung myelinization, sabi natin kanina, di ba? So this is now the myelin sheath, the thicker the myelin sheath, the faster is the impulse transmission. Mas mabilis. Okay, kaya pag sa mga stroke patients, di ba, anong ginagawa natin? Di ba? Meron pa yung B-complex, yung sinasabi na neurotonic drugs natin in order na to facilitate yung thickening of this particular myelin sheath para mas mabilis ulit. Yung paggalaw, pag-isip ng bata. Okay? So, the problem is, yan. That also now increases, kaya pag mas maraming neurons at mas kumakapal yung myelin sheath, the more na naging faster yung transfer ng information. Pero, mabilis na yung transfer ng information, hindi naman napraprocess kasi kulang ang gray matter. Klaro tayo doon? Are we clear with that? Okay, so, yung connection, dumami, kumapal pa, so bilis-bilis. Pero yung nagpa-process na gitna, sa gitna, yung cell body, which is now the gray matter, hindi. Okay? So more of, makikita natin, kaya risk takers yung mga adolescents natin. So they are more into action or feeling rather than, of course, now yung thinking process natin. Further, okay, this is now the process natin. How do our brain develop? Okay, this is our brain. Okay? Ito yung utak natin. So, side view, okay niyan. Okay? This is now your sensory motor area natin, sa likod natin. And this is now the thinking brain natin. Okay? So, if I will divide it, this is now the area for emotions, diba? Emotions yung amygdala na yan. And, yan, feeling brain ang tawag natin dyan. The frontal area is now prefrontal cortex, ito. Okay? Kaya pag nag-iisip tayo, ang ginagamit natin ito, di ba? Pag naglalakad tayo, yan. Pag nagde-decide tayo, yan. Pag set tayo ng goal, ito ang ginagamit natin. Okay? Judgment. It's very important for judgment, for goal setting. It's now the frontal cortex and that is now known as your thinking brain. Dito sa likod, that is now your acting brain. Dito naman, feeling brain. Okay? Now, paano po ang development ng adolescent brain? The adolescent brain develops now from back. Back. So, anong unang nade-develop? Acting. And then, feeling. And then, thinking. So, pag ang bata, anong mangyayari pag may concern siya? Acting muna. Diba? Bakit pag-away muna yan, diba? Kasi pag-away na yan, hindi pa niya iniisip. Because that is now the part of the brain that is now developed first. So again, the brain development is from acting to thinking. So if something happens to me, act muna ako bago ako mag-isip. Kaya teenage pregnancy is implication. Bakit maraming teenage pregnancy? Because nag-act muna bago mag-isip. Okay? Further, the brain development also occurs now from in feeling yan to ibig sabihin, this is the feeling brain. Feeling muna bago acting. Kasi these are all part of acting, di ba? Acting. So feeling and acting ang una, di ba? Rinamdaman niya muna, di pag na-stimulate na. Di ba? Na-stimulate muna. Hindi niya na-control kasi acting muna bago siya nag-isip. Therefore, that is now, what is now the implication? Kailangan ng mga anak natin na i-guide natin sila. This is the moment that our guidance is most important. Okay? So, early adolescent, acting. Late adolescent, dyan pa lang nade-develop po ang thinking. Okay? Normally, di ba? Oh, that's your balance and coordination doon. Okay? Normally, what is now the normal process, di ba? Of making decisions. It should be sense muna. Na-sense mo, nakita mo, di ba? Sensory. Na-sense mo, and then pag na-sense mo, ano dapat muna? Thinking. From thinking, ipaprocess ng amygdala, feeling bago ka mag-act. Pero since mas nauuna na nade-develop ang acting sa kanila at saka feeling, what happens now? They sense, they feel, they act before they think. Okay? It's natin yan? Okay, so that's the problem with your adolescent brain natin. Okay, so sabi ni Steinberg, one of course now the most famous person who tried now to study the brain of the teenagers natin. A teenager's brain has a well-developed accelerator, but only a partly developed brain. Kaya doon po nila kailangan ang tatay at saka nanay. Okay? So, the prefrontal cortex is the last area of the brain that is now developed. What is now the function of the prefrontal cortex? The prefrontal cortex is responsible for abstract thinking, conceptual understanding, problem solving, judgment, decision making, reasoning ability, goal setting. Diba? So, ito, napaka-importante yan, prefrontal cortex natin. Planning and organization of multiple tasks, frustration tolerance, very important din yan for frustration tolerance, ability to feel empathy. Okay, so very important yan para maging caring people sila. Pag mag-act, dapat feel muna. Okay, more on the empathy. And that is also now the area where impulse control or your emotional regulation is now activated. But the problem is, diba, there is no hypofrontality. And if there is no hypofrontality, ang unang iniisip nila is pleasure. Instead of this particular processes that is now being done, of course, now with your prefrontal cortex natin. So that's a problem with your hypofrontality. Inside of the brain, so we were talking about the amygdala din kanina, diba? That's the emotional center of the brain natin. So what about now, the emotional center of the brain? That is also now the first, diba? In to out. So back to front, in to out. So mas nauuna yung emotional. Plus the release of dopamine, feeding now the reward center. So what happens now? They engage into yung risk-taking behavior. Okay? So nag-combine ang pagiging emotional nila, plus, diba? O pag gumagawa sila ng isang bagay, they feel good about themselves the more na nare-release yung dopamine, which feeds now the reward center in the brain. And if the reward center in the brain is being rewarded, they would feel na, maganda ito. Nako-condition, kumbaga pag sa computer, di ba? Na-i-encode na ganyan ang gawin mo. Di ba? Kaya pag i-retrieve mo, lumalabas ka agad. Ito ang gagawin ko. Okay? Because it has been coded already in the brain rewards center of the brain natin. So sabi dito, like a car with great accelerator, but they have poor brakes. Okay, so what about now your amygdala hijacking? Which usually happens also to mommies, mothers. I'm also, ito yung explanation sa mga EQ natin, bakit kung minsan wala tayong EQ, nagagalit tayo kaagad, nakita pa lang natin na hindi ginagawa ng bata, ito na yung mga responses natin. Okay, this is what is now problematic in the response of parents in relation to this behavior of children. Okay? What about now your amygdala hijacking na sinasabi natin? Nawawala yung EQ natin dahil nagkakaroon ng amygdala hijacking. Normally, okay, so what happens now? If we are presented with a scenario in the environment, kunwari nakita mo yung asawa mo na merong kasamang babae, di ba? Sense. That particular sensation is supposedly feed now into your brain natin through your sensory stimulus natin. So, sa yung nagre-receive, yung thalamus natin, dadalhin niya dito sa brain natin. And from there, ipaprocess niya muna, okay? Ipaprocess niya muna bago magpupunta dun sa field. And then from the field, saka siya mag-a-act. So, na-screen na dapat ng thinking process natin, di ba? Na-screen na dapat ng thinking process natin yung sensory inputs, yung mga nakita natin sa environment natin, yung mga narinig natin, before na raramdamin natin, bago na mag-a-act tayo. Pero kung minsan, di ba, bakit bigla-bigla ka nalang sumisigaw? Dumating yung anak mo na, like, di ka pa nakinig, di ba? Eh, may ginawa naman palang project. Dahil, di ba, nauna yung emotions mo. Kaya nung nakita mo yung anak mo, nag-process ba ito? Hindi na. Nagkaroon ng shortcut. Dahil sa buisit mo, anong ginawa mo? Diba? Nag-sermon ka na kagad sa anak mo. So that's the problem with your amygdala hijacking na tinatawag natin. Ngayon, can we control itong nagkakaroon tayo ng amygdala hijacking na sinasabi? Kaya parating sinasabi, diba, na pag galit tayo, magbilang ka muna ng 1, isa, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? You let your parasympathetic nervous system rule you because pag nag-debriefing tayo, di ba? Asar na asar tayo, may ginawang hindi maganda yung estudyante natin, nagre-react na kaagad tayo, amygdala hijacking na. Okay? We allow ourselves to calm down muna, di ba? The best way to calm down is now to do the deep breathing exercise. Okay, yung 4, 6, 8. What does 4, 6, 8 mean? 4, inhale. Hold ng 6 seconds. And as you are holding to that particular air, di ba, iniisip mo din, kalmado ako, kalmado ako, kalmado ako. Okay, and then exhale slowly, first clip. When you say first clip, parang di apoy-puyo ka ti balloon. Okay? Parang nag-blow ka. Okay? Sa balloon, di ba? Slowly. And as you do that, you also release your anger. Also release your tension. Okay? So that, na-stimulate mo yung parasympathetic nervous system na tinatawag natin. At hindi ka maa-amygdala hijack. Okay? Kaya sabi dito, pag kalmado ka, if you are now in a calm state, di ba? Nakokontrol mo yung sarili mo, what happens now? If there is now an emotional stimulus, kunwari sinigawan ka ng bata, di ba? Or nag-backtalk yung bata. Since kalmado yung state mo, what happens now? Your thalamus will be bringing now that particular emotion or sensation into the cortex. Okay? And the cortex will process that before bringing it now in the amygdala. Okay, so pag na-process na ng thinking natin, nagkakaroon na tayo ng emotional regulation. Nare-regulate yung emotion natin kasi in-interpret realistically ng cerebral cortex natin. Okay? So, regulated na ang emotion natin, and what about now your emotional response? Your action will become better. Mas maganda na, nagre-react ka. Ngayon, palitan natin ito. Yung calm state into angry state. Sumigaw yung bata. Anong nangyari? Nagkaroon ng shortcut. Okay? Pinikat na kaagad ng thalamus. Saan dinala ng thalamus? Hindi na niya dinala sa cortex. Dinala niya kaagad sa amygdala. At pag nadala na sa amygdala, galit ka. Diba? So what happens now? Away na. Okay? Kaya pag late na dumating ang mister mo, diba? Nakita mo ka na yung kagad, di ba? Eh, di pati siya, di ba? Na-amygdala hijack din. Nag-away tuloy kayo, di ba? Okay. Habang andyan pa lang siya, pumapasok, inaalis pa lang niya yung sapatos niya, di ba? Deep breathing ka na. Okay? Deep breathing. Okay? Para hindi ka ma-amygdala hijack. O, sino yung mga na-amygdala hijack dito? No, normal sa mga babae. Diba? You know, sabi nila, mga babae nagger. Hindi po. Ladies, mommies are not nagger. They learn how to nag. Napatunayan ko yan. Okay? Daddies, mommies are not actually naggers. They learn how to nag. Okay? Because of so much pressure that they also encounter in everything, diba? And the multiple roles that they perform. Diba? Okay, so klaro tayo sa amygdala hijacking natin. Hindi na pumupunta doon sa brain natin. Okay, going back. Yan, ang tinatawag natin na amygdala hijacking. Kaya pati mga anak natin, di ba? Pag role model natin, di ba, na amygdala hijack tayo, nag-react agad tayo. Pati sila. Lalo na because of, nakita niyo yung neurons kanina, di ba? Myelinated, dumami pa. Diba? So, mag-pop back ka agad yan. Okay? So, what does this mean? Adolescents on average are more impulsive, aggressive, emotionally volatile, likely to take risk, vulnerable to peer pressure, likely to overlook alternative courses of action. Hindi nila nakikita, di ba? Overlook. Ang importante, teka, parang stimulating ito, sige na nga. Hindi nila iniisip, di ba? Hindi nila naisip na mabubuntis ba ako? Pero bakit dati noon, di ba? I do not know, pag gano'n, di ba? Pero yung mga teacher namin sa high school noon, bawal makipag sa mga lalaki, di ba? Mabubuntis ka, di ba? Pumasok sa isip mo yun. Ay, ako nakipag sa lalaki, kasi mabubuntis ako. Okay, pero ngayon, di ba? Yan. They likely to overlook, nakakalimutan nila yung consequences ng behavior nila. Kaya pag nag-tweet na yan, at nag-tweet na something about their friends, diba? At nabasa na ng friends at pinag-chismisan na, diba? Dito, makita mo, awayan na yan sa classroom. Okay? So, similarly, how does your teenage pregnancy occur? Because of that, they cannot think forward. Hindi na nakikita yung consequences ng behavior nila. What is important is the pleasure that they will experience at the moment. Okay? So, what does this mean in terms of behavior? They are prone to focus and or overestimate short-term payoff while underplay longer-term consequences of what they do. So that's what I was mentioning here earlier. Naka-focus sila sa pleasure this time, but they cannot anticipate. Okay? They cannot think about the consequences. They lack common sense. Okay? Yun nga, di ba? Mag-wash lang ng dishes, mag-fix lang ng room, di ba? Nakikita niyo yung mga anak niyo, nagpapasok pa sa room nila. Diba? Naglalaok, mineral bottled water, hanggang na inawan nga plato, di ba? Yung mga wraps ng cookies and candies at mga clothes nila, di ba? Parang ganyan. Thinking that seems rigid, decisions that seem irrational, and disorganization everywhere. Okay? That's how the adolescent brain is actually depicted. Okay? But, what further complicates this? The onset of puberty, release of growth hormone, which leads now to rapid physical growth. Ang laki-laki na nila kaagad. Bakit mas malaki pa yung anak mo kaysa sa'yo? Diba? Narinig nyo yung mga comments na gano'n, diba? And when other people would see our kids bigger than us, they thought our kids are already adults, while in fact they are still adolescents, diba? So there is no higher societal expectation, and there is no higher societal expectation, pressured and failure to meet expectation that would lead now to your psychosocial problem. Further, release of your sex hormone would lead now to activation of the reproductive maturity. And there is also no increase in sexual attraction towards the opposite sex. You combine these two together, this will actually be a risk factor now for your teenage pregnancy. Okay? In summary, anong sabi, adolescence is a transition where interaction between biological, behavioral, cognitive, emotional, and social domains takes place. But the problem is the neurocognition, the logical and reasoning, and the emotional regulation are not yet fully developed. Okay? Therefore, this particular items, since they are not developed, it drives them now, okay, to go into your risk-taking behavior. So, sabi dito, adolescent brain is a period of tremendous reorganization. Therefore, what happens now? Primary causes of death and disability are related to problems with control of behavior and emotion. That's why, if you try to take a look at the statistics natin, number one cause of death among our adolescent natin is motor vehicular accident. Diba? Yung moto, diba? Sasakay. They love now riding on a motor na walang mga helmet, walang mga safety guards natin. Number two is actually now suicide. Okay? So those are our health paradox natin. So these are now some of the problems that we encounter because of that particular brain natin. Your adolescent period is perceived as a period of storm and stress. But, okay, let's try now to shift our thinking differently. Okay? So since alam natin na nagde-develop pala yung brain, do not look at it as a period of storm and stress. Instead, okay, very important ang paradigm shift natin, we look at it as a period of opportunity and vulnerability. Opportunity to feed positive. Okay? Positive activities. Vulnerable sila. Vulnerable to what? Instead of vulnerable now to risk-taking behavior, we let them be vulnerable to spiritual growth, communication, academic excellence, yung mga bagay-bagay na. So, depende kung ano ang pinifeed natin sa mga anak natin at kung sino ang kasama nila. Okay? So, would it be better for you na kasama niya yung friends niya sa labas? Or you'd rather have your kids with their friends at home? Diba? Kaya pag sabi ng bata na, Mama, magbabasketball po kami. Eh pag may basketball naman sa bahay niyo, it is better that you tell your kid, diba? O dito na lang kayo magbasketball sa bahay. Mag-prepare ako ng merienda niyo. Mama, mag-overnight po kami sa research. Sa bahay po ni ganito. Hindi ba pwedeng dito na lang sa bahay? It's safer here. Kasi hindi natin alam kung anong nangyayari outside. They might be having their overnight somewhere else, diba? Without the guidance of some people. Pero pag sa tingin mo, they are safer in your place, you better invite the friends in your place. Huwag natin ipagdamot, okay? Because the more that we can, of course, now communicate to our kids that we love them, we love their peers, and when they feel that we love them and we love their peers, then the more that they would know they're showing positive behavior. Okay, sabi ng World Health Organization, the adolescent brain is a second window of opportunity, a time of rapid learning and brain development. Ang bilis niyan, di ba? Kaya pag ang papasok sa kanila is away, conflict, rebellion, rebelde ka kasi, dugyot ka kasi, inutin ka, yung mga gano'n, di ba? Kagigising pa lang na umaga, oy, maling ka, ang sadot, mga gano'n. Sadot talaga ang papasok sa isip, di ba? Pero pag ang dinalagay natin sa utak nila is beautiful ka. You can live a meaningful life. Your life could be something which you can put purpose into it. And you guide them along. Diba? Then, yun po ang papasok sa isip nila. Okay, so feedbacking, according of course now, to Skinner, Pavlov natin, or even Bandura's social learning theory, napaka-importante yun. A time of rapid learning and brain development. So, depende sa input natin, yun din yung na-expect natin na output. A period of vulnerability and opportunity. Positive po dapat ang tingin natin sa vulnerability. Vulnerable sila, madaling pumasok ang information sa kanila. That's why it depends upon the information that we are providing to them. So provide guidance and opportunities. Teens need to use their thinking brains for what? For planning, reasoning, creativity, problem solving, emotional knowledge. Pero pag nakikita nila arong-arong, di ba? Arong-arong or substance abuse or barkada, then automatically, yun yung ipa-follow nila. Kasi yun yung opportunity na nakikita nila. But if we provide them better opportunities such as engagement in music, di ba? In poetry or arts, di ba? Then, this particular creativity, problem-solving, emotional knowledge would not be developed. Okay? Make the risk positive, not negative. Keep them away from negative dangerous risks such as cigarette smoking, drinking liquor, poor parental modeling Nagagalit si Mayo ngayon dahil tumataas ang incest rape cases. Incest. And if it is incest, the rape happens in the family. O, akala natin, di ba, safe ang family? Where the child is supposed to be growing. Bakit? Ang mga bata nagsa-self-harm. Tanungin mo, pag ang nag-self-harm, nag-suicide, ay batang babae. Malaki ang possibility that this child has been sexually abused by any member of the family. It could be the dad, it could be the kuya, it could be the uncle, it could be the grandpa. Mamis, take care sa mga babaeng anak natin. Okay? Yan na, poor parental modeling, driving with peers. Kaya huwag mo sa, abay nakasay-sayot ka, kita na umuuna dito batin, baka pati si kasayot, di ba? Kasi poor parental modeling, that's very important. Unsupervised time, unsupervised time, very important yan, di ba? This time, ano mga sinasabi ng bata? Pag wala kang ibibigay na gadget, boring! Boring! Tapos sabi, nagdadato ti ruot, ruwarte pa na, ingagruot, ingagwalis. Ayaw naman, boring daw. Ang daming gagawin sa bahay, sabihin boring. Wala nang gadget, boring. Unsupervised time, ha? Psychology would tell us an idle mind is the workplace of the devil. An idle mind is the workplace of the devil. Walang ginagawa ang bata ngayong bakasyon, ha? Walang gagawin ng bata. So if you can organize some activities for our kids, then that would even be better. So promote positive risk-taking as much as possible. Start a new sport or activity, school play, new job, diba? O new responsibilities, kaya yung mga summer job for our adolescent, that's actually a very good program now of the government. New responsibilities. Provide opportunities for enriching experiences, limit use of TV and video games, allow for healthy socialization, physical activity, or real-life problem solving. You involve them, okay, sa community, anong pwedeng gawin sa community, encourage healthy risk during the teen years, sports, creativity, challenging studies, or even now, yan, mga jobs natin. Keep communicating, listen, encourage, and support our kids natin. Sabi dito, this is something very touching, this is something very close to my heart. The kids who need the most love will ask for it in the most unloving way. Kaya yung mga rebelde, sila po yung nangangailangan ng mas matinding pagmamahal. Yung mga wal-wal na estudyante nyo, sila ang mas nangangailangan ng matinding pagmamahal. Okay? Tips on parenting: provide a secure source of attachment. Don't wait till they drift away from your attention. Huwag nating hintayin, di ba? Na ini-embrace na pala sila ng mga addicts, di ba? Na mga manginom. Dahil hindi mo sila in-embrace. Okay? Heal your inner child. Pag tayo mismo ng mga magulang, ang dami nating trauma at hindi natin na-overcome, di ba? Ang dami nating unhealed inner child na pro-project po natin sa mga anak natin. Okay? Inherited family trauma, mga awayan, di ba? Be receptive and reflective, but not reactive. Okay, yung amygdala kay Jackie na sinasabi natin kanina. Know your triggers. Ano yung trigger mo? Yung menstruation mo ba ang trigger mo? You can control, di ba? Okay. Importante focus on the things which you can control. And do not allow your emotions to control you. Be in control of your emotion. Practice self-compassion din. Kasi kung minsan pag-stress tayo, di ba? Stress ka sa work, stress ka dito sa school, uwi ka na naman, maglaba ka pa, magluto ka pa, linis ka pa, stress ka na naman, di ba? Take time to rest also, self-care. But else, focus on the wholeness, not the holes. Wholeness, not the holes. Kasi ang tinitignan natin, yung nakita, ugali mo! Yung mga butas-butas, diba? Okay, this is now the cotton bud. Anong nakikita natin? Yung mga dots. Diba? Do not focus on the holes. Focus on the wholeness. Let us not parent based on our wounds. Very common yan, diba? Be good role models, emotional regulation, acceptable behavior, yan. Know how to regulate your emotions natin. And then, do not provoke your children. Sabi dito, lest they become discouraged. The challenge as caring and responsible parents and adult, how can we address these concerns of adolescents natin? So yan po ang challenge natin for this particular afternoon. So how can we address these particular concerns? Very important. My last word, look at every child, even a problem child, not as a problem, but as a potential. For that, salamat po.